I am Danielle Costa McCobb of Family Crisis Intervention Unit in Somerset County. Today I'm going to be presenting on Power of the Pause. It's a self-regulation technique for parents. So today we are going to do a definition of what self-regulation is. We're going to talk about the value of self-regulation. We're going to talk about challenges with that, and we're going to talk about quick tips and mindfulness and other techniques, and then have some resources for you as well. So what is self-regulation? Self-regulation is the ability to control one's emotions and behavior, including thoughts, impulses, and instincts. Why is self-regulation so important? Self-regulation helps us to respond to situations in a more constructive way and avoid negative consequences. So if we are regulated in ourselves and our emotions, we're better able to handle our feelings and triggers when they come up. It prevents further trauma, which sometimes our self-dysregulation is a response to trauma. So it helps us, if we're regulated, it will help us be more cued to stopping the cycle of trauma. It creates more successful and short and long-term outcomes for us and our children. So if we are modeling for our children that we could be regulated, it'll help them to learn how to regulate their emotions and stress. It helps us build more positive relationships with them as well. If we are not always yelling, we're not always impatient with them, we can definitely have healthier interactions with them, increasing our bonds. It minimizes the negative effects of chronic stress and forms healthier habits. So if we are dealing with a lot of stress, self-regulation can help us learn how to manage that a little bit better. And also it is a healthy habit to learn, and we're going to find out how to form healthier habits with just little techniques that we can do. And lastly, it provides a healthy model for our children, because our children are looking at us on how to behave and how to manage stress. So if we can show them that we are self-regulated, then they're able to be more regulated. Why is self-regulation so hard? So self-regulation is hard because maybe we're exposed to other people's traumas. Other people come with baggage, and they may have trauma themselves that flows into our own orb of our world. Maybe we have a lack of support or don't have any support system. We can have daily challenges with work, with our personal lives, family members. We may have old existing habits or patterns of behavior that contribute to continuing the cycle of trauma. We may have physical versus emotional needs. We may be limited physically. We may feel hungry. We may feel stressed in our bodies. And if we feel that way, we're not able to regulate ourselves emotionally. We may not have had positive role models with our own parents, our own family. So there may be a lack of positive modeling in our lives. We may be isolated from family and friends and a support system or resources that contributes. And again, lastly, we may have our own personal trauma. So if we're not dealing with our personal trauma, that can get brought to the table and triggered when a stressor comes up for us, and then we become dysregulated. Things to keep in mind. Put on your own oxygen mask first, like they tell you in the airlines. It's important to take care of yourself first. Feelings aren't bad. It's important to not label our feelings as bad and just accept them for what they are. Feelings aren't facts. So this is an important one for knowing that even though we may feel a certain way, it doesn't mean that it's actually the way it is. It doesn't name it a fact. We can have feelings that are just our own, maybe our own baggage, but they are not facts. And know and own your own buttons. So know what triggers you is really important to staying regulated or avoiding those triggers if you can. Next is harnessing the power of yet. So the power of yet just means that we are accepting where we're at. We are admitting that we're trying, maybe we're not where we want to be yet. Reaction or tantrum, are we reacting to someone or are we having a little temper tantrum ourselves? So that's important to realize because we want to react with mindfulness rather than just reacting impulsively. So here are some quick tips. Breathing is of course important. Everyone should be breathing, but just be breathing with mindfulness. If you're stressed and you can breathe with mindfulness, that'll be more helpful. Act opposite the urge. So if your urge is like to yell and scream and temper tantrum, act in the opposite. Maybe staying calm, maybe taking a breath, walking away. Thinking out loud. I love this one because sometimes we're not even aware of how we're feeling. But when we get in touch with that and we can say it out loud, sometimes that centers us and helps us to understand what we're actually feeling in the moment. And consider your tone and volume. So much of what we say is how we say it. So that's also important. Sometimes no words are the best ones, right? Sometimes we just have to walk away. That's most important. Not continuing the argument or whatever is going on in the situation. Using positive self-talk and praise for your child. So not beating yourself up every time that you're not perfect or you've made a mistake. Just giving some positive feedback for yourself will help that become more available for your own children, and you'll be used to giving them praise, because who doesn't want praise? So we are here with more quick tips. It is important to remember your goal in the moment and prioritize. So making sure that if your goal is to stay calm and centered, that you are doing everything you can to eliminate stressors in your situation to achieve that. Taking care of your basic needs is really important. If you're tired, if you're hungry, you're stressed about something else, it's harder to keep yourself regulated. And leave time for yourself to safely express emotions. It's all about what you do to cope. If you can express yourself through journaling, if you like to express yourself through dance or music or any of those artistic, maybe creative ways, it would be really positive. It's a good way to release emotions. Find someone to talk to, whether it's a friend, a relative, a therapist, a member of the clergy. And most of all, be the model that you want to see. So if you want your children to be respectful, you want them to be kind, please be that yourself, because if you're not showing that, you're their first example of how to be. So if you are not able to regulate and you're screaming and yelling, you can't expect them to be respectful and peaceful. You have to try and regulate yourself. Let's talk about some ways to regulate ourselves. Mindful breathing. This sounds maybe, we all breathe in and out every day, but having it be more mindful, maybe closing your eyes, sitting quietly to help regulate the nervous system. Shape breathing, when you can just trace shapes on the palm of your hand, just to kind of distract yourself. Box breathing, where you're breathing in and out. I like to do 4 breaths to the count, breathing into the count of 4, breathing out to the count of 4, breathing into the count of 4, so that you're creating a square. 5-finger breathing is when you're tracing the shape of your hand. Inhaling and exhaling, and inhaling and exhaling. And then we have color breathing, where you can imagine breathing in a color and breathing out a different color. These methods are really used to help distract the mind as well as calm the body with the breathing. And then we have something called the stop technique, stopping and pausing what you're doing. Okay, so if you're doing something, it's chaotic, just stopping what you're doing and taking a pause. T, take a slow, deep breath, something that we were just talking about, just being able to breathe in and out consciously. And O, observe your physical sensations and then your thoughts and emotions. So really just doing a body scan, being aware of your emotions and how they're impacting our bodies. P, proceed with a one thing focus. So just remaining focused on that one thing that is important instead of like trying to juggle a lot in your mind, which can make many people feel overwhelmed and stressed. Just trying to focus, narrow your focus to one thing. The 3 A's. So accepting what you can't change, and what you have already tried to change and what isn't a priority. So basically, it's about accepting where you're at, right? If you can accept where you are in your process, then it's better able to, you'll be more able to change that behavior. And deciding what isn't a priority for you. Really taking what's important and maybe taking some things off the list that are not a priority anymore. Avoid stressors that you bring on yourself. So if you're someone who takes on a lot of stress, you're overwhelmed by tasks, or you're one of those people who it's hard to say no to, or no to, whatever people ask of you, try to eliminate some of that to lessen your stress level. Adjust what you can, and from your perspective. So adjusting whatever you can. It's all about taking accountability for yourself and your own actions, doing what you can. Worst case scenario technique. Okay, so what is the worst thing that can happen? Sometimes we catastrophize something, and when we actually think to ourselves, what's the worst that can happen? Sometimes it's not so bad. So sometimes just going over that, what am I most afraid of? Maybe identifying that is not so bad. You can handle it. How likely is it? So can you use a scale of 1 to 100 to give a percentage of how likely it is that something would happen, the worst case scenario would happen? Challenge your feelings with facts. Is this a feeling or is it a fact? So you may be even able to stop after that. It may be enough where you've challenged yourself, you've given a percentage, you have your worst case scenario, and it begins to lessen, the feelings of stress and dysregulation for you. So what if it does happen? Ways to cope. Challenging our perception of the danger allows us to make a plan if needed. So when we anticipate the worst happening, sometimes we can make a plan on how to cope with that. Some other ideas. Taking a deep breath. We talked about that before, but that's really, it should be emphasized a lot because that's important. Doing a self check-in. Just body scanning is good. Just checking where we're holding tension in our bodies, thinking about, our mind as well. Checking in with our emotions is really important. Do something different. So change your behavior, you change your voice, change the setting. For example, if you always have an argument with your child over homework, maybe discussing it in the living room, maybe it just changes, the whole environment there. Maybe it's a more relaxing atmosphere. If you always come with a stern voice to your child about certain things, maybe being cognizant of having a softer tone, and then change your behavior. If you always have a stern posture, maybe sitting down and approaching your child with a more relaxed, open atmosphere, or attitude, rather. Visualization and imagery. I feel like this is so important because it's important to have a vision of what you want to be and how you want to be a parent. It's important to just keep that focus and that vision alive in your mind as to bring it on into reality. And focus on the positive. There's a lot of positives, I bet, that everyone can pick out that they're already doing as parents, that their children are doing, to give yourself and your child some praise. And some other ideas continued. So it's important to make and think of a problem list that you can that could be used alone or using other strategies like the following. Change versus can't change. So can I change what the situation is, or do I have to accept the situation for what it is? Things that I can't change, or at least you can't change yet. Making a plan is so helpful to be able to cross things off your list, making a plan, and de-stressing. It helps us when we have a plan to set forth our goals. Helpful versus harmful. So it's important to keep in mind what behaviors you're doing that are helpful and what may be harmful. So if you can be honest, for yourself as a parent, it's really important to examine what you feel like has worked and what's not worked. Facts versus feelings. Again, it's so important. They put it in here twice. So it's thinking about what is a fact and what is just my feelings. Maybe it's just my thought and reaction to something or a feeling that I have around something versus a fact of what is. And what is my goal? Is my goal to be self-regulated and calm and centered in my approach to parenting? So if that's your goal, then just working towards that and keeping a plan in mind. So I thank you for listening to this presentation today on self-regulation and parenting. I hope you found this information helpful and valuable. And if you need some more help, I'm here to provide some resources for you. So there's Family Crisis Intervention Unit, which is where I work, and we provide family counseling to families in conflict for youth under the age of 18. There's also New Jersey Mental Health Cares. They're a good referral source, and there's a number 1-866-202-HELP. And there is Perform Care for children and families. They do in-home work with children and families experiencing conflict. And there's www.childmind.org for parenting information. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this presentation. Have a good day.